Hey everyone, effective communication is the key to happiness. Whether you are connecting with colleagues at work, spending time with your family, or interacting with the public, you have to communicate. How you do it will directly impact your happiness. My guest today is a public speaker, a communications coach to some of the world's biggest brands, and the author of several books, including his latest, High on Life. He caught my attention with his TEDx talks. Collectively, they have over 12 million views. He is a storyteller and bases his techniques on science. He teaches how to elicit hormones like oxytocin and dopamine and explains why you should avoid cortisol and adrenaline when public speaking. David JP Phillips joins me now to talk about all things communication, presentation, storytelling, and his latest focus, communicating with yourself.
Stand by. We're going live. We're going live. 10, 9, going live. 7, 6, 5, going live. 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's a pleasure being here, calling in from Iceland today.
Wow.
It's a rain and cold day over here, and I wish I was where you were.
I figured maybe you're on one of those nice European long vacations that we don't quite experience here in the U.S. because it is summer.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, this is the last week of that, so I've already covered five holiday weeks. And
5
this will
weeks.
be
Amazing.
the last 5 days.
The cafes and the coffee shops, the European style, have come to the U.S., but that 5-week European vacation, not here yet. Not here yet.
Soon enough.
Oh, hopefully. We're working on it. So I have to start with my first question for you. I love the work that you do, very similar to the work that I do when I'm not here at the podcast. So what goes through your mind 10 seconds to air?
Oh, what goes through my mind? The last thing I do before going out on stage is I actually look at my mobile phone and I look at my daughter, and I just look at her until I hear my name, David JP Phillips, and I just toss my phone to the side and I go out. And it's a trick to increase oxytocin deliberately.
Let's get right into the hormones. How does that elicit oxytocin?
So oxytocin is proven to be released when we feel empathy for something. And I feel a lot of empathy and a lot of loving emotions for my daughter. And it's beautiful because it's an antagonist to cortisol. Cortisol is usually what runs wild when we become nervous. And oxytocin is its worst enemy or your best friend. It cools you down, makes you present, makes you calm. And I think the most important thing of all when it comes to public speaking is that it makes you care. And caring about your audience is just the most important thing.
So you're not thinking about what you're going to say necessarily and all of that. You're trying to elicit that feeling before you go out on stage.
Last 10 minutes, it's all about state. Yeah. I've already rehearsed so well. I already know, how I should start. If I start thinking about that, I'll just mess it up. So last 10 minutes is literally just what I call mixing my own angel's cocktail with different techniques to elicit different substances like oxytocin. I don't maybe always want oxytocin. It depends on my audience.
Okay, well, let's talk about what you do want, depending on the audience. What might you also want?
Ooh, if you're going to go out to a bunch of hungry salespeople, like 1,000 screaming hotheads, you don't want to go in there calm, relaxed, present. You want to be hungry as they are. So I usually do testosterone exercise before going in on stage, and maybe like a dopamine exercise as well, because both those are very high frequency related substances.
What's a testosterone exercise?
I usually do what I stack like 6 different techniques, which are scientifically proven to increase testosterone in men and women. So I walk around backstage like I own the world, chest up, chin up. Second thing is I breathe like I'm hunting something. So I usually go like this. With my gaze, I look down like I'm actually hunting something. In my mind, I have like these victorious thoughts. In combination with this, I have music, which usually makes me drive my car too fast. And then I walk around and I combine all of these together. And the last thing I do, hopefully nobody sees this, but I this like just massive chest bump where I hit both my fists into my chest, and I do. If I'm fairly alone, I do like a scream. If I don't, I do like a silent scream, and I get instantaneous goosebumps, and I feel like I can take on the world. And some talks just need that. Some do not need that. Yeah.
What do you find are the biggest challenges when you work with people that they have?
I think this has varied throughout my career. As you, we've been doing this for a long time. And during my 25 years, it's just shifted so many times. But I think what I've been realizing lately is that people, they're so stuck in their own world and their own script, their own performance, their own delivery. It's so important that they perform, that they're good, that they get the response. And that removes you from reality. It removes you from the present moment with your audience. And I think I said it before, caring is just the most important thing. If you care for your audience, you move it outside of yourself. Yeah, you focus on. I love focusing on having fun. If I have fun, they have fun. If I care, they will care.
Mm-hmm.
And those two is just way better than focusing on performance, which I think a lot of people do. What do you think?
Right. Well, I would say that too, but it made me also think, do they care so much that it's sort of screwing them up and they get so in their head? So that word caring, I sort of, play with a little bit to say, you don't want to say don't care, but you also want to say don't care so much. For me, I think it's releasing the outcome, knowing that you're prepared, knowing that you're able to do this, having the confidence to do it, and releasing what the response may be, It's interesting that you say that it's changed over the years. Why do you think it's changed?
Experience, really. The way I view public speaking now is quite different from 10 years ago, and that is quite different from 10 years prior to that.
Right.
And I think you're right, but I think what people care about is not making a fool of themselves. They care more about that than actually getting their message across. It's like it's their priority is that. I think I often see that. Yeah.
Well, definitely, because embarrassment, shame, all of that. We did a podcast on that as well. So that is definitely one of the reasons why they're so concerned about the outcome and they care so much and can't really release that. How did you actually get into this work?
Super quick. I had an IT company, super successful. I was 18, 19. We're turning over millions. I came to work one day. My partner had left with all the money. The entire thing went bankrupt. I owned everything and everyone, so much money. He was just gone. And I got headhunted to another company to do training, IT training, because that's what I did. Like, I was an IT expert. And then they said, well, you're brilliant at training. We would love to employ more people that could do training. And I did it for them. I employed 20 people. And they sucked at training, even if they were official teachers. And I just couldn't understand it. So I taught them how to be better teachers. And so I really did my first public speaking course when I was 20 maybe. Where I got this from, probably my parents. They were both teachers and very, very good at explaining things and making things simple. Yeah. But that's a quick story.
Wow. Wait, back up just 1 second. So your partner takes off with all the money. I mean, that's unbelievable. And what went through your mind when that happened?
I think I was like mega optimistic. And I felt like I could just take on the world. It didn't matter, really. I got disappointed, of course, at the time. But I didn't see it as a problem that just like pulled me down and held me down for the rest of my life. I was like, this is a lesson. Let's carry on. And yeah, well, if I compare me where I am in life now and where compared to him where he's in life, because I know where he is now, and it's just he's in this like 100 shades of gray kind of place in life, and I'm super successful. So yeah, it wasn't about robbing somebody blind then. It was just carrying on and doing the right thing, which was the right thing to do.
So let's talk a little bit about this new book, High on Life. Where did that come from?
It came from again, this is an evolution of my perspective of public speaking. Up until 8 years ago, I was you've seen my TED Talks. I was so focused on storytelling, on how to avoid death by PowerPoint, on the 110 steps, analyzing 5,000 public speakers to find every skill.
Which I love all of them. I love them.
My
I
God.
think you're fantastic. So
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I spent so much time doing what I then define now as external communication. What happened 8 years ago was that I realized I was depressed. I was literally, I was walking over a bridge with my wife, and I was struck by an emotion I hadn't felt in like ever. And she asked me what was going on, and I tried to describe it. It was really difficult. She looks at me and she says, "That sounds like happiness, David."
it sounds like happiness.
Sounds like happiness, that emotion I was trying to explain. And that's when I realized I hadn't felt it in my entire adult life. Which then I further on figure out I've been depressed for 17 years.
Wow.
And I went into that so slowly that I didn't even notice I went into it. So I didn't know I was depressed. It was just like, this is normal. The world is dark. Life is pointless. Nothing matters. I may as well take my life. That's what I saw life to be until these 5 minutes that day about 8 years ago.
So you had been feeling depressed. You felt your whole life, and in the moment with your wife on this bridge, you felt happiness.
Yeah.
Come over you.
Yeah.
And then you recognized, wow, that's really different from where I have been.
Such a difference, such a miraculous moment. And it went away just equally as quick as it came, from absolutely, literally nowhere. I've been doing some meditation, which was different for me. But then when I saw those 5 minutes, I realized that there was something different. Like there was a different version of life. So I started chasing that madly, and that just became my absolute obsession for that entire year. And then I hacked my depression. It took about 18 months. But then all dark minutes turned into bright and light minutes. And since then, every single year I'm living is better than the other. And life is just so insanely different if you're in a depressed and non-depressed state. And that's what I now define as internal communication, which I've now understood in my evolution of public speaking is to some extent even more important than being brilliant at external communication. If you're brilliant at both, you're world class.
Right. Wow. So where do you start that internal communication? How does that begin?
Oxytocin is if the book covers the 6 main substances in our brain that can alter our mood. And the example I gave you in the beginning with oxytocin is one of them, where I practice that a lot because it's a very self-healing hormone. So I practice that a lot when hacking my depression, but also when I teach people public speaking, that moving your audience into an oxytocin state will connect them to you and you to them. And I do that in my storytelling talk, where I talk about I lost a child. And in that very moment, when you share stories which are personal, which are moving, which are filled with vulnerability, you magically connect with people faster than any other method out there. It's just unheard of. If you're at a dinner party and you're talking about weather, wind, and whatever, you don't connect. But as soon as you share something personal, something of a level of vulnerability, the other person will do as well. And you will have connected more within 5 minutes than 3 hours at work, or 3 years at work.
Right.
So that's one of the examples of the book of how you command your own emotional state for the better good of the activity.
Talk about dopamine for a second. Dopamine is such a big one. How do you do that internally?
Yeah. Internally, if as soon as you, I don't know if you like chocolate, for instance, but imagine that you get a little bit hungry and peckish, and you start imagining this chocolate bar, and but you have to go out and get it, but you keep imagining this chocolate bar, and you're like, oh, I really want that chocolate bar, and every single time you think that thought of the chocolate bar, you start salivating more. Every single time you look forward to anything in life, dopamine is released. So dopamine is like the force pushing you forwards in that particular direction. And the more you've now decided to go and buy that chocolate bar, the more dopamine is pushed out in small doses to go like, go get it, go get it, go get it. You know you want it. Come on, come on. And then suddenly you get hold of the chocolate bar and you sink your teeth into that soft, delicate, beautiful, moist chocolate. And in that very moment, a high dose of dopamine is released. So what you really want to be as a public speaker is you want to be that chocolate bar on stage. Because if you're not, the brain is constantly competing for chocolate bars. So what they're out there sitting, there's 100 people in your audience. What they're actually doing is in their brains is they're thinking about other things that are chocolate bars. Like, I'm going to bid for this house. I'm going to say this to my wife when I get back home. I am going to write this book. I'm going to do this and do this. Your absolute job, fundamental job as a public speaker, is to be that chocolate bar so that nobody else thinks about anything else. And you see that when people are leaning forwards, when they're nodding affirmatively, when their eyes are peered open, and they're waiting breathlessly for the next thing that you're going to say. You know you're the chocolate bar.
Instead of them looking down at their phones.
Because then that's the chocolate bar. Yes.
Because there's their chocolate bar, which happens a lot, right? People start looking at their phones. They're doing that is a very challenging task for a public speaker.
Yeah.
To get your audience to really pay attention to you and to not necessarily be thinking about all the other things that they have to do. Because you do look around and you will see people want to check, they want to look at their phone, they want to do a million different things. So how does somebody really become the chocolate bar for their audience?
I've got a fun name for that. It's called a reversed rock concert. That's when you walk up behind a large group of people watching a really bad speaker, and everybody's on their phones, but it's obviously lit in the wrong direction. So a rock concert, they turn their phones towards the person singing, showing them as lights. But in this case, it's reversed. How do you become a chocolate bar? Well, there's so many techniques for dopamine, but just to cover a couple quick ones. Simon Sinek's Why, of course, is that the entire purpose of that is to be dopamine driven. If you know why the talk is important for you, you'll listen. If you know why the next slide is important, you'll listen. If you know why an example coming up is important, you'll listen. So the why, and you can break these down to macro whys. That's the one you do in the beginning, which Simon often talks about. But then you have the micro whys, which is for each slide, for instance. So a quick example of that is when people show slides, they can go click. This one. We should have removed this slide. So that is.
I love this. I love this, David, because this is one of my pet peeves. You know, when I work with people and the slide pops up, anyone who's listening who's worked with me before knows the slide is the bane of my existence. So keep going. I can't wait to hear what you say about this. The slide.
We're likewise on that. The slide. And so how do you do a micro why for a slide? Well, you say something like this. Before even showing the slide, you say this. Ladies and gentlemen, the next slide coming up I've got to say, this is my personal favorite. I've worked on this for over 1 week consistently. Some call it PowerPoint poetry. Some call it genius. I know you can't wait. So could I ask you, yes, you, gentleman in the first row, for a drum roll? Yes, please. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Boom. Now you bring out the slide. And it can be the same shitty slide as last time. But this time, they're like, oh my God, it is actually pretty clever. It's bordering on genius, madness, but genius. You obviously can't do that excessively, but I usually do that example in my keynotes just to really make a point of that. You can make anything boring exciting.
So you're saying with the setup,
Yeah.
you're eliciting the dopamine, you're
Yes.
becoming the chocolate bar.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can say things like, my next slide is actually my personal favorite. You can say that once, but you can also say things like, we've gone through the theory of this. I want to show you 3 what I find super exciting examples. And I know the third one will shake you to the ground, so let's go for the first one. So you can say things like this, yeah. So that would be the micro-wise. So you have the macros in the beginning, the micros for the slides, and then you have the nano-wise, which are the very smallest one. And these are exactly that, a pause. We go like, what's coming up? What's happening next? Climax building with voice. So you can say, all right, I've shown you 1 slide. I'm going to show you a second. I'm going to show you a third. I'm going to show you a fourth. I'm going to show you a fifth. You cannot wait for the fifth. Like when you do that with your voice.
Right.
So these are like nano dopamine injections. If you combine the macro, the micro, and the nanos, you toss in some storytelling in there as well, you've covered at least like 4 very basic ways to produce dopamine in your audience. And I'd say that for any public speaker, that would probably be the most important thing to practice. I call this why by instinct. You get so good at it, you don't even think about it whenever you open your mouth. Anything and everything you say almost is of interest for the person that you're talking to.
Let me ask you this question that I get asked all the time. I'm curious to know how you respond to it. People say, I don't want to practice too much because then I lose my spontaneity. I don't want to do too much of this. You get that question sometimes?
I do. Yeah.
You do. What do you say to that? You
write your script and you rehearse it so well that you know it by heart, so that you can add emotion and you don't have to think about your script. That's like the ultimate version of public speaking. That's what I do in my TED Talks. I spend literally 4 hours per minute rehearsing that. A lot of people don't want to do that because they don't find that to be valuable input of time. So the other option is then to just rehearse a little bit, but then truly, 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 truly feel your content. Then you can get away with being spontaneous. But otherwise, if you're trusting what's the word?
Spontaneity. Spontaneity to just appear.
You will never be better than 6, maybe a 7. You'll never be better if you don't have the skills.
You need to practice. You need to practice. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Agreed.
That's it. Yeah. Well, it's like like a football player. Cristiano Ronaldo, he can be spontaneous on the pitch, but he can be it because he's got the skills.
Right. Because he put the work in before. Yeah. He did it. He knows. And so when things pivot and happen on the field, he can respond to that with full heart and soul.
He'll be brilliant. Messi will be, that's what they do. That's why they're so good. But you can't make an amateur do that because they'll just fail. And it's the same thing in public speaking. They'll never be better than an amateur football player if they don't have the skills to back it up.
Right. What keeps you going, David? Because you're really committed to communication, to public speaking, and then it sounds like now to your own journey with this.
Yeah. What keeps me going? Well, I'd say it's probably in a way, I feel sad for people who don't know how to do public speaking, because because the very definition of public speaking is speaking in public. And speaking in public is something people do every single day, irrespective of a job. It's not something on a stage. Speaking in public is done by anybody and everybody. And those who can do it, they accomplish so much more in life. They usually get better relationships. They get better connection with their kids. They get better careers. They earn more money. And it's a skill that anyone and everyone can learn. And I think that's my obsession, that I want to keep on inspiring people that it is not a talent, it's never been a talent, it will never be a talent, it is always skill. And you just practice those skills and you become excellent at what could be one of the most important skills in your life.
And anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it. You know, you probably transformed hopeless cases to amazing amazing people, right? Amazing results. True? You've done that.
True. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've both seen that journey, that it's possible to make it, and it's life altering. Like they could have gone on without that skill for the rest of their life, but they would have missed out on so much. Instead of just spending like 3 to 6 months focused on learning these skills, and you have it for the rest of your life in every social situation. It's such a crazy skill to learn more about.
Well, and I think you said it very well there. For me, it's everyone is communicating all the time. You go to the grocery store, you are communicating with people. You wake up in the morning, you're communicating with your family. You go to work, you're communicating. Like you said, you are always public speaking. You cannot avoid it. And if you do it well, and if you learn the right tools and techniques, you can create an amazing amount of success and happiness in your life. It's really endless. And once you learn that, you can go from there to there to there, just like you writing the last book now.
Yeah, absolutely. And the next level of that is obviously we're not just communicating with others all the time. We're communicating with ourselves even more often.
Absolutely.
From when we wake up, and the first thoughts that pop in our head, which to some extent will color our day. Like if you start up with a negative mindset, that will usually spin off to an even more negative mindset. So yeah, that's why I cherish, like this book High on Life, which has come out now in the US and in 34 languages. Actually, it's become a mega international hit. And I'm super happy about that, because more people need to learn these skills.
So David, what's your secret? How do you wake up in the morning? What's your routine?
1 minute of gratefulness for the previous day, and then I just get up. I realize I'm like an alcoholic, where you always call yourself an alcoholic, even if you don't drink, like that concept. I will always be depressed. Is that I'm just not actively depressed. I think I have like a mind which is primed to be easily depressed and easily sad. I wake up every single morning in the saddest of moods. And I know that if I lie in my bed and I let my mind wander, or if I look at my mobile phone, half my day is messed up. So 1 minute of gratefulness, and then I just get up, turn on all the lights in the room, and if I really need it, I put on some upbeat music, and then I hit the gym after that. But that's the plan. Do you know what I enjoy the absolute most with this interview? Like, I love your smile, of course. I love the energy. I love that we have the same passion. I love that. But it's also probably one of the very, very rare podcast interviews where there's not one single filler sound in between the host and the interviewee. No filler sounds, no air, no air, no ah, no air.
I do say right once in a while. Is it bugging you? When you talk, sometimes I'll say right. I'll say, okay, I agree with you.
Yeah, no, that's not.
Okay.
I don't think it's not excessive in any way. And that's not really, I think filler sounds is more problematic for me. Like when somebody goes, every single sentence, my brain just goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can't do it.
All right. So let's give some people some takeaways. People who are
Okay.
listening, who want to change their communication, they want to change their connection with others. They want to start right away.
Yeah.
What do you say? Where do they begin?
Where did they begin? Damn, that's a good question. All right. So basics would be 1 in 3, they don't look other people in their eyes when they shake their hands. Just please start doing that. When you see somebody, look them in the eyes, shake firmly, and be a positive person. Like if it's a positive situation, of course. That's just a super simple low-hanging fruit that will just, because the thing is, you must have seen this when people come up and they shake this person's hand, but they're already looking in this person's eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And they're one step ahead.
I had a boss. Wow. He used to come through the newsroom. So I was a news anchor reporter before I went into this business. And he used to come through the newsroom. He'd spot you. He'd give you one of those, hey, like he's been meaning to see you. He'd come over. He'd get in to shake your hand and his head would be already off to the next, to the next person. He had absolutely no interest in me or anybody else that he was talking to at that point. So yes, good point. And people have a hard time with that, right? They have a hard time holding that eye contact because it's vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's a vulnerable moment.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying. You're saying, go ahead, shake the hand, be vulnerable. It's okay. And you might actually have a beautiful connection. You may start that moment off with this moment of connection, which is the first opportunity to communicate.
Yes, exactly. And the scary thing about this is that when you do the first example where you don't look them in the eyes, it actually, it means you don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look them in the eyes, it means you care. So it's the opposite, the absolute opposite, right? So that's the first one. Second one is filler sounds. Filler sounds is, if we listen to anyone, you and I, we will find that the greatest concentration of filler sounds occur when people are nervous, insecure, uncertain, they're lying, also to some extent if they're thinking. And if you remove your filler sounds, you will be perceived as you know what you're talking about when you're talking about anything. You can quite literally pick up a bottle from a table and you can present that bottle and it'll seem like you know what you're doing because you haven't got any filler sounds. So that's it.
Right. Okay, let's get rid of the
Yes.
And how do we do that? I will suggest take a pause. People have trouble with those filler sounds only because they're, like you said, they could be thinking, they're nervous. There's a million different reasons why. But it's okay to pause. It's okay to have empty space. It's okay to say nothing sometimes. And I think a lot of people have trouble with that. So when you are trying to get rid of the ums and the ahs and all that filler, it's okay to have a little silence or have a moment where you're saying nothing. Everyone's okay with that.
It shows confidence as well. This is my space. I'm okay with being quiet. Right. The third thing, this will work on stage or in everyday life, it's volume. So I did this, for those who don't know, I did a study of 5,000 public speakers to find every skill I could identify. So I want you to imagine a periodic table in front of you of 110 skills. And there are mother skills in these. So one skill can affect up to 20 other skills. It's pretty mad. Like one single skill can affect up to 20 others. And one of those is volume. So when you ask anyone who speaks in a fairly normal volume or even in a low volume to increase their volume by 20%, it'll impact, I think that one in particular, that skill in particular can impact up to 20 other skills. And it gives an absolute and immediate reaction to your posture. So as soon as you increase your volume slightly, your posture changes. And your your clarity of speech changes, your tonality changes, your breathing pattern changes just by increasing volume by 20%. What we instinctively usually do when we become nervous is that we go down in volume, which is the absolute thing you shouldn't be doing. So it's again going against your instinct, increasing by 20%. So saying this to everyone out there, which may be socially anxious or whatever, if you go into the supermarket or to the gas station next time, and you just increase your volume by 10%, just see the change in yourself, and you will feel a boost of confidence by just doing that. If you're not already a loud person, because then it'll just be strange. Yeah,
I am thinking of some loud people that I'm thinking, don't, please, no.
No, these are for the. But there's quite a bunch of people who speak quite low.
So check your volume. We'll call it a volume check. And if you're someone that thinks you kind of crouch away and you feel you start to diminish and disappear in your chair, increase your volume just a little bit, and you might just stand up straight.
Let's end off with one on the one on oxytocin, just to repeat that, because I find that one so important. If you've had a hectic day at work and you're filled with dopamine, you're thinking about work, you're thinking about tomorrow, you're all excited in your head, and you come home to your family, you won't see their eye contact, and you won't feel their hugs, and you won't hear their answer to your question, how was your day? Even closely related to the difference, if you just took 2 minutes before going into your family and looking at something that produces oxytocin, like look at photos from when your kids were small.
Look, you did it to me already. I went,
yeah. Look at something that tears you up. You don't have to cry, but like literally waters your eyes a bit. 2 minutes, that's all you need in the car. Now, when you go into your family, you will see their eye contact. You will give them a different hug, and you will listen to their answer to your question, how was your day?
Wow, that is such great advice. Because your head is someplace else. You're getting your dopamine fix someplace else.
Yeah.
So to get back to reconnect.
Yeah.
Take a look at a picture.
And that is on all stages. At home,
right,
on the big stage, podcasts like this, social media.
Wow.
Yeah. Brings out humanity in us.
Anything I didn't ask you that you want to make sure that you mention?
The question's brilliant. And we've covered a lot. There's been a lot of practical tips in this, and just a summary of this is that speaking in public is something you do all the time, and if you're not speaking in public, you're speaking with yourself, quite literally. And the better you are at both of those, the happier life you'll get, the better you'll be able to reach people, and it's a life-changing skill. And the most beautiful thing with this skill is that you can practice it without setting off any particular time for it, like just removing filler sounds. Hey, just do that for 3 weeks in every conversation. You did not have to set off time. You didn't have to go to a training. You don't have to go to the gym. Like, you can do it in the very time you already have, so it will not take any more time from you.
You can practice on your own time, anytime. And what I often tell people too is, don't be so tough on yourself. So you're practicing. Don't worry about it. If you throw a filler sound in, okay, well, maybe you threw 1 less in today than you did yesterday. And the next day you'll have 2 less and 3 less.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress. It doesn't happen like that overnight.
No.
But it can, with time, like you said, 3 to 6 months, you can really change your communication style, or just become a better communicator, better connector, and be happier.
Yes, exactly. There we go.
David JP Phillips, I love the conversation. Such a pleasure to meet you. I love your TEDx talks. The book, looking so forward to that. High on Life, How to Naturally Harness the Power of 6 Key Hormones and Revolutionize Yourself. I look forward to it. And congratulations, it's here in the US. And what did you say, 34 different languages?
Yeah, massive. And when you come to Europe, let's meet up.
Yes, I would love that.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
This podcast is for information only. It is in no way medical advice. As always, consult your doctor for medical advice.